Move out the country. I keep telling you, what's the hedge? I think that, okay, so in the 1960s, it was like, hey, get a house, good career. Then it became invest into businesses, invest into stocks. If you can get a venture capital, private equity, that's been in playbook the last 10 years. The new playbook, next 10 years, get enough capital to move out the country, pay taxes here, but enjoy the override of currency somewhere else as the dollar's fallen 10% in the last 45 days. That's the new investment. International arbitrage.
Well, let's talk about that. The dollar's definitely down. Like you said, 10% over the last 45 days. Other currencies are up, including the euro, a few others. So gold, obviously, the all-time high. Bitcoin's at an all-time high. How far can a dollar go?
I don't want to. I got my prediction about Tim Cook right. I'm done with my predictions for the year. We don't have that much lower to go before we hit the floor. And one of the things that I think it was Pomp who said it, that the value of Bitcoin, and it goes for gold too, will continue to go high as long as governments print money. I don't think, since we got off the gold standard, there's any plan for us to stop printing money as a nation. So if more money keeps being printed and it's not backed by anything, that there's not a reason for the dollar to go higher as a result. So just in our lifetimes, I've said it before, like where I'm from, and when I graduated from high school in 2000, you can get a really nice house for like $150,000 or $200,000. I don't know any major city now that you can get a great house for $300,000 for. Wow. And the interesting part, information around investing, crypto, stocks, the fall of the bond market, private equity is free flowing now. And then they drop the value of the dollar. So even if you make more money, as we talked about, it doesn't stretch as long. That's why you can't even just put money away and save it. You have to deploy it into an asset to invest in just to outpace inflation while the value drops 10% in 40 days. That is insane to me. That is insane. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's why Bitcoin and gold, right? It keeps going up as the value keeps going down, and the value has to keep going down as long as we keep printing money. So actually, let's play this clip. That leads right into it, right? Let's play this clip about Bitcoin's price potentially, why it has to always go up, because the value of money has to keep going down as long as it keeps printing money.
Of Bitcoin is the very simple story. They are never going to stop printing money, so therefore Bitcoin will never stop going up. And if you simply think of Bitcoin as savings technology, all you have to do is go out, work hard at your job, make money, spend less than you make, and then put the extra savings into Bitcoin, and then allow Bitcoin to benefit from what we know is going to happen, which is they are never going to stop printing money. And I think that simplicity is actually very attractive to some cohort of investors. And now you see investors saying, wait a second here, this quote unquote debasement trade means that I don't have to go do all that work. I can simply just go and buy something like Bitcoin. And I think that really maybe the story of finance of this decade is that Bitcoin is becoming the hurdle rate, right? Historically, we've looked at things like the S&P. If you go back to 2020, the S&P is up 100% since 2020. Priced in Bitcoin is down 90%. All of the returns that people are talking about in traditional finance, most of them are negative because no one can beat Bitcoin. And so if you can't beat it, then we just say you got to buy it. And I think that's what a lot of investors are starting to do.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. And now, sometime next year, Vanguard had an ETF. Like, even the banks are hedging against it. And I don't know if it'll be the end of this year, but by the top of next year, for that reason, you're going to hear a lot of people start echo the sentiments that I had. The 60-40 bond model is broken, and now it's going to be some version of crypto ETF as the bond replacement. Told you. Scary hours. So what can you do? If you're new, got to invest the capital into the market. Microsoft, NVIDIA, with the successor being lined up, Apple's looking pretty sexy again if he puts together a good AI plan and if they have permission to acquire an AI company. Netflix, all of these companies we talked about before. But I think if you don't have a potential country to spend some time in as a hedge, you haven't thought of your all-weather portfolio strategy. You have to factor the country in as well now. I mean, it's not just us. Meta's done the same thing, and Netflix has done the same. Every company is a global citizen. If you are not looking to do the same, at least as a preparatory exercise, you're sadly mistaken.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Okay.
And lighter news. Is there lighter news this week? Oh, what are, give us, my top three. Give me top three things that you've learned since you've been on the continent of Africa. On this particular trip. I know y'all been a few times this year, but this particular trip, what have you ascertained?
Well, we were in Guinea before we were in Senegal. So Guinea, we got an education on Guinea. Guinea was the first country in this region to get their independence. And they broke away from France early. And they said, like, when they broke away from France, similar to what Haiti went through, where the president of France flew to Guinea like 1960, 1970, something like that. And he got booted to the airport. They offered him to, be able to stay on as, a colony and not fully, be under the rule. And they turned it down. So they said that as soon as that happened, they ripped up the railroad. They flooded the market with money to purposely lower the value of their currency, propped up corrupt leaders, the whole economic hitman thing, like really, like, and they just starting to come out of that now. But it was just talking about, like, as far as the history of Guinea and France and how they, just sabotaged the whole situation from the beginning and really put them behind the eight ball. So that was an interesting, lesson that we learned. And even in this country, as far as Senegal, we went to Gorée Island, which is where the slaves, it was a slave port to send slaves to the Caribbean, Americas. And they were saying that how on, like, even with that, it lasted 400 years as far as the slave trade. And they showed us, the whole thing of where they kept the slaves and all that, the whole process. But that was interesting too, because they were saying, like, a lot of the slaves from this particular side on this tip got sent specifically to the Caribbean, mostly like Cuba and Jamaica. And on, like, Ghana, they got sent mostly to, like, on the American side. Like, there's actually a Jamestown in Ghana, which is a direct pipeline to Jamestown, Virginia. So learning that history, because most people don't really travel to French-speaking countries too much if they're not already, a native of the country. So a lot of Americans are familiar with, like, Cape Coast in Ghana, and that story, but not familiar on the French side.
Yeah.
But it was actually colonized by 4 different countries: Portuguese, the English, the French, and the Spanish. So that slave trade, over the course of that time frame, and they took different terms as far as, ruling it. But that was that. And they actually said that so when you were born of a slave, if a slave owner, had a kid with a slave, then they would be a mulatto, right? And their children would automatically become a French citizen. Napoleon Bonaparte, they said that his wife was a daughter of a mulatto woman.
Really?
So that's interesting.
That's interesting.
Didn't know that. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of history. A lot of history for sure. Definitely a lot of history. But France, man, they done a tremendous job. Even they were saying, like, when wave of independence started to come to Africa, they knew that they wasn't going to be able to keep the colony. So they actually opened up a school. They showed us a school to train future presidents, to indoctrinate them and brainwash them and kind of have them under the rule of France. So they lost it, but they still had the leaders. So technically they still kind of, maintain governance even up to like now. Now you're seeing a bunch of young leaders that kind of took the reins. And that's been the case all over. Like in Guinea, the leader, he's like 36 now, 38. General took over military coup. And then president of Senegal, I think he's like 44 years old, young. So there's a lot of young leaders in Africa now that's kind of like, reversing those trends of just still being loyal to the colonial masters. But man, it's a lot.
When you gonna make your full pilgrimage over to Africa and live full time?
Man, you gotta see, man. Gotta see. We plant seeds and then see what trees can grow from it. But obviously, we got the Ghana project underway. So, that's definitely gonna be something that's a main staple. But yeah, so a lot of different things that's happening in Africa right now. And we just been traveling, just moving around. And it's important to go to different countries that people may not even heard of before. Honestly, like Guinea, I don't think that's a country that people really even heard of.
Yeah, most people didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, going to Benin, going to Guinea, going to Cote d'Ivoire, going to, Senegal. Like, we got to shine lights and just, explore the world, because you never know. You never know. The world's too big to just stay at home. Like, you gotta explore the world. You gotta see what's out there. You gotta see different opportunities. You gotta talk to people. You gotta, like, if you're not doing that, then what's the purpose?
Yeah, life's too short to be stagnant. Go explore. I know some people may not be able to afford it, but get on Expedia or Orbitz or whatever. They have some deals available. Go explore. Go travel. Go see the world if you can.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.